if I were to sit here and say, oh, I found a point where I stopped comparing myself, right? Because I'm trying to like somehow give off this aura that I've
Figured
found
it out.
this
You
crazy
haven't figured it out.
self-discovery. Yeah, right. It's like, no, I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And so, I mean, do you go by Train?
Whatever you want, Tyler, Trainwreck, yeah,
What do you
whatever you
prefer?
want. You know, uh, just whatever rolls off the tongue, Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
What about you? Can I go Doc, Dr. K,
Sure.
K?
Sure. You can call me Doc. You
Doc?
can call me Dr. K. You can call me All Oak if you want to. It's not all maple, it's all oak.
Okay. Can I do Oak? Like Doc, Oak?
Sure.
Or just Doc? We
Sure.
can do Doc.
Doc.
Doc's cool with me.
Yeah, cool.
We
So
can do Doc? All right,
I may bounce around between Train and Tyler until I figure out which one rolls better off the tongue. Is that cool?
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
Train though.
Yeah, Train's just what is that? Is that one syllable? Train, right?
Yeah.
Tyler, right? Train. Yeah, Train. I think Train rolls off the tongue. Yeah.
Done, buddy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So
Awesome.
tell me, is there something in particular you wanted to kind of talk about today?
You know, I have no idea.
Cool.
Um, you know, uh, is there something you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, so I can ask you a couple of questions. I didn't have something.
Perfect.
So, I just love to hear a little bit about how you came to be a streamer and kind of, yeah, how'd that happen?
Yeah. So I'm Persian, I'm Iranian, and for me, I can do whatever I want, in life, but usually we're pressed, toward like, doctor, lawyer, engineer,
Sure.
things like this. Probably more so doctor, lawyer area. Um, both my parents are engineers. Gaming my whole life, the typical spiel, get off the computer, do something with your life,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
typical bullshit,
Same.
Can I
Same.
cuss? Can I cuss? Or
Yeah,
is
sure.
this,
I think
are you
so.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as
Sweet.
long as
All
it's
right.
not against TOS.
Oh, now we're good. Okay.
Okay.
Well, unless you have a sponsor that's, more PG than it might be,
I
but
think it's fine, man.
okay, fuck it then. Okay. Anyways, you know, uh, yeah, just, gaming, Diablo 2, great game.
Hell yeah, man.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Mephisto runs, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, great. Mephisto runs amazing, phenomenal. Wow. Good days. Anyways, just gamed and one day, I found Twitch and started streaming and, you know, uh came to Austin, did some collabs with another streamer, and we both ran Twitch. It was absolutely amazing.
What does that mean, ran
Num-
Twitch?
just number one, top of the game.
Oh,
If
wow.
there's a pyramid, yeah, top pyramid, right?
Wow.
And yeah, we both went our separate ways, and I grinded, and yeah, now I'm here. I guess I just stuck, damn, I have a big head. Have you noticed that? I actually have a pretty big head. I looked at, I don't know what's going on. I'm telling you, it's the quarantine stuff. No gym. My head's just, I have to maintain the gym in order to keep my frame bigger. And then my head looks proportional. But when I get skinny, I just have a really big head. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of see what you're saying. I think your head looks relatively normal size to me, or I wonder if it's because of your posture, right? So you're
You're right.
leaning in. So if
True.
I lean in,
Yeah, I like that.
my
Okay.
shoulders are going to look smaller and my head is going to look bigger. But I mean,
True.
I think
like
it's
that. You're right.
cool that I mean, so leaning in is like good though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
it's engaging. I'm
exactly.
engaged.
I mean, I think that may be part of the reason you're number one, because when you stream, you lean in.
Well, I'm not
Right.
number one now, but yeah,
Sure.
at the time.
Well,
Yeah.
in my heart, Train.
Oh, my man. See, that's what I'm saying. I like that. Perfect.
Right. So, like, I mean, you be
Yeah.
you, right? So,
Yeah.
and if it sounds like you had a little bit of like feeling self-conscious there for a second.
No, I just I told myself I wouldn't drink coffee before this.
Why not?
But because, coffee's good for me when, I got a tournament or I have a tournament, but when I want to, calm down, get my, you know, yeah. Does that make
Do
sense?
you wanna be calm?
Yeah, I want to be calm, relax. I want to, eloquently, get my, but right now I'm just kind of just a little jittery. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, sure. And is that because of the coffee? Are you nervous or
No, yeah, it's the coffee. I get this really good thing. It's called this cold brew. Get a little
Yeah,
sweet cream in there, delicious.
delicious, man.
And yeah, it puts me in this just mental block area. I get body energy, but the mind just becomes a zombie. And it's just,
Can you tell
just
That's
yeah.
that sounds really fascinating. I'd love to learn more about that. I wonder if other people also experience that. Can we talk about that for a couple
Yeah,
minutes?
let's do it. I'm
Tell
cool with
tell
that.
me what you mean by mental block and like body energy.
So I feel like coffee, right? I feel like it puts me on a one tunnel route, right? And all I'm focused on, so I don't know if you can hear the lawnmower. I apologize, or
I don't hear
the
anything.
bushwhacker. I don't know what you call that. I'm talking
Someone
about.
trimming their
Terrible.
pubes in the other room?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure what's going on, but that noise is probably the number one PTSD in the world, right? Like all those weekends sleeping in, and then at 5:30 a.m. you hear the
Yeah,
and then
man.
finally it dissipates, right? And then out of nowhere you think it's
And then
done,
it comes back. They're
and then
circling back because they're coming in front of the yeah.
yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
You finally get some relief, and then finally it comes right back, and you
Yeah.
open the window, you look down there, and you can't say anything. You feel bad because,
That's it.
right?
Someone's
Yeah,
job.
yeah. Anyways, I feel like my mind is put on this highway, this one tunnel, one way road highway to get to the other end, right? So it's good for that. If you need to get work done and your work is in one category, it works for that because it puts you in that kind of autopilot mode and it gives your body energy and it puts your mind into one track, area. But for me, since I'm very emotional and I want to kind of passionately, and deeply explain things, which requires multiple perspectives at one time simultaneously
Sure.
happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It it doesn't allow it. It makes me more of a simple, caveman kind of club against dragging the club against the ground, or I mean, fire. Oh, does that make sense?
Yeah, so let me just see if I hear you, and then you let me know if I kind of am capturing it. So on the one hand, like, so what I'm hearing is that coffee sort of focuses your mind, right? Gives you sort of tunnel vision, and
Tunnel vision. Yeah.
yeah, so then like you can't really see alternate perspectives, and maybe
Yes.
kind of what you're thinking is that especially in a conversation like this one, part of what we want to do is like draw from different kind of perspectives, right? Not just think
Yes.
in a very narrow way, but like think a little bit emotionally, think a little bit more like open-mindedly, and maybe coffee like interferes with your ability to do that.
Yes. I think so.
Yeah.
I think in like 15 minutes I'll be good. It's
Okay.
the initial boost. I think it pushes me. So imagine my brain can take so much focusing whatever, right? And the coffee shoots me overboard where my brain doesn't know what to do with it. And I become confused in a state of confusion where I can't properly get, my brain won't choose the right words. And, I know what I want to say, but I can't get it out. But
Do you
after like 15, 20 minutes, I kind of even out and we're good to
Sure.
go.
So that's actually exactly how caffeine affects your bloodstream. So you tend to get a spike and then it evens out over time. So
Oh, perfect.
yeah, so it's like physiologic, man.
Yeah.
And
So
are
we just
you feeling like you're not able to find the words right now?
yeah, that's why I was hoping like the reason I
Really?
was hesitant yeah, well, the reason I was hesitant to come on is because I'm someone that for me it's like a day by day thing. If I wake up and everything's good and clear, I'm in that passionate emotional mood. I can perfectly like, put on the table what I want to say. And then some
Mhm.
days I wake up and I'm just so, I just, you know, I can understand why people are surprised why I have 2 degrees. I can fully understand where they're coming from, right? Because there's, it's not there, right?
Train,
So,
what if I told you that you're speaking very clearly to me?
I've been told that the last, I think 2 podcasts ago, Devin told me the same thing, and I felt like I was being very unclear. See, that's the weird part. I've been told that by many people that I talk to when I feel like I'm in a state of, you know, unclarity, not
Yep.
clarity. What's the word? Is it unclarity? Unclarity sounds weird.
Lack of
Okay.
clarity?
Lack of when I'm in a state of when I'm in a state of
Fogginess.
Fogginess. Thank you. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Fogginess. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind
People
of
can
interesting.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, you're talking about, you know, but I understand that sometimes you have good days and bad days. And I think maybe there's like
yeah,
something to explore about like, so our mind does have fluctuating states of consciousness, right? So there's some days that you wake up and you're kind of like driven and focused, and some days that you wake up and you like really don't feel like doing anything. And so I think there's something to be learned about like how do we deal with that, right? So I think a lot of times we assume that people who are successful are successful because of something like discipline, but there's natural variability in terms of how on the ball we are. And so how do you deal with, kind of some days where you're not on the ball and some days where you are on the ball? And also there's like something else to think about, which is that, sometimes it seems to me like there's a pattern where your perception is that you subjectively feel foggy, but other people may not be able to tell. And actually you're communicating quite clearly. Like, what do you think about that?
that actually makes complete sense. I mean, I think of it like a pimple. So what I mean by that is, it's kind of like when you get a pimple in the morning, right? And you look at it, and it's this hideous, disgusting thing on your face, but no one else notices it. No one else even sees it. When they look at you, they see you, they see normal you. You look fine to them, but to you, you see this horrendous, huge, James and the giant peach-sized pimple on your face that's distracting of every other quality you have, right? So I think it's the same thing, right? You see it, you notice these small little differences, but no one else really does until you point them out.
Buddy, you're firing all cylinders today because that was a phenomenal analogy. And it's
Thank you.
so it's so true, right? Like, I mean, but so like trained, like how does that work? Like, why does our mind do that? Why does our mind take something that feels insignificant? Or sorry, that feels so significant, but that the rest of the world just, I mean, we have our own pimples to think about. We're not thinking
Yeah,
about yours. Like, why does that happen, man?
I think it's unfortunately, I think it's just today's world, society. I think we have I th- I think the world that we're trying to create for like our children, that ends up, being for me, and I grow up into it. It's to give us less like problems to solve and more of enjoying the solutions. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, we're put into this world where we don't. If we had like serious shit to deal with, if we were more into the real world and there was serious shit to deal with, these superficial, small little bullshits wouldn't. We wouldn't be trained to look for these like superficial flaws that, right, we're bored. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing of importance that's actually a reflecting of true character and true whatever the hell. So now we're stuck. Does that make any sense? But
Yeah.
see,
So
this is the part where, okay, go ahead.
so so now I want you to do something, Train. I'm gonna repeat back to you what I heard.
Okay, go ahead.
And then if you are truly incoherent, then what I
Okay,
repeat back is not going to make sense.
okay,
But if I repeat back and you feel like that's what you were trying to say, the only way I can know that is if you were coherent,
perfect.
right? So what I'm
Yes,
hearing is that like maybe your parents had like real problems to deal with. And what's
yes,
happened now is like they worked on solutions to those problems and they actually
yes,
succeeded. And so
yes,
our generation grew up without those kinds of real problems. And so
yes,
something about today's society causes us to take not problems and make them problems.
yes. That's exactly right. I think that's right. Right. So like, so for example, my dad came here with nothing, and he had to take care of, he was pretty much the dad and the mom for his siblings. And he finished his university in 3 years, as opposed to the normal average 4 years. And he did that while balancing two jobs so he can support all of his siblings and put them, through college, and, financially support them and,
Wow.
their dreams. So when he sees a pimple, he's like, who cares, right? Or when he sees a cockroach or a cricket on the ground, he's like, that's nothing, right? Whereas I feel like me and others and people of this generation, it's like, these small little things, it's like, these are like, holy shit, like, how is he, right? We make these like totally irrelevant, and I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of any of the other, like, we're complete sissies. Does that make any sense? Like, if you were to put
Sure.
us into the, barbarian days of like hunting and gathering, we'd probably be dead, you know?
So
Does that
this,
make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. I just don't know if I entirely agree with you because I think if you put us in the barbarian
Yeah,
days, I
we'd
think,
adapt and
yeah, you're damn right we
yeah,
would.
we'd adapt. I know. I was using an
Yeah,
exaggeration
yeah,
to
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
get my point across. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think it. So the interesting thing is that we are sissies, sure, but I think what I would say, trainer, just something to
Well,
think
we're not.
about.
You and I aren't, but everyone else.
Am I not? I'm
No,
confused.
no. Both you and I would survive easily. You kidding me? Easy.
I don't
You
know,
see me? I
man.
mean, yeah. No, we'd survive. Trust me.
I mean, you may survive. You seem like
We'll
kind of a
survive.
beast, but
Thank
I'd
you.
probably
Thank
get
you.
eaten because like a tiger would show up and I'd try to talk to it about its feelings, and then it wouldn't
But no,
give two
see
shits.
that works. You want to know why? Because every beast, every beast that's seen as a beast truly doesn't want to be seen as a beast. It's the people who aren't beasts that want to be seen as the beast. The beast that's actually a beast wants to be seen for his inside, the emotional, the good, the small. So technically, having you around, you would talk to me about my emotions. I'd appreciate that you'd see me for me, not my shell, and then I'd protect you while you and I exchange. Does that mean, well, exchange sounds like we're doing some sort of like, some blowjob stuff. We're not doing that. I'm just saying, exchange as in like exchange our gifts or talent. Okay, that makes it worse. But you know what I mean, right?
Well, actually,
Yeah.
this time I don't know what you mean because it
Well,
sounds like you're talking about blowjobs. Exchange our
well,
talents.
yeah.
Here, train. Let me show you my talent.
Oh my man. Hey, let's see. Poof. We're getting in. We're going in. So
Uh,
yeah, I think yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, here's a thought. So like one thing that I sometimes wonder about is whether our mind was actually like evolved to worry about things, and that we have circuitry in our brain that like helps us worry about things. And so it gets kind of confused because it's almost like, if you have like a dog and you don't give it like stimulation or toys, it's going to start like tearing into your couch cushions,
True. Yes. That's
right?
a great example.
And
Yes.
and so it's kind of like our mind is going to find something to worry about because it is strange. Like because I look at people, and what Buddha actually said is that suffering is like a given in life. That we always think that suffering comes from something on the outside, like being an immigrant and working two jobs and you know but even if we don't have that, like, and you could describe a lot of suffering, the interesting thing is I'm not so sure that your dad suffered. I think he sacrificed a lot. It sounds clear to
Yeah.
me that he sacrificed and that you respect him. I'd love to hear more about him, by the way. But that, actually, I think what the suffering that we see is that we're in a world where the most that we can't worry about are pimples. And actually, what I hear from our community is that they long for like a challenge, a test, to like be in a situation that actually causes them to struggle and find meaning. To not just wake up every day and like play games and like worry about the zits on their face. They're hungering for something almost more of like, I mean, I almost hear like a sense of envy around, being challenged and like really rising, like, because what they want is they want to be eaten or to win, right?
Yeah.
They just want anything except for this kind of mind-numbing autopilot of like dopamine kick to dopamine kick to dopamine kick.
The saddest thing though is I'll tell you the saddest thing about that. The saddest thing is I truly believe that longing for something is the very thing that we actually need. What I mean by that is that longing, that is the amazing feeling. The need or that ongoing, like, that state of longing is what you need. As soon as you get that thing that you believe you're longing for, you realize it's not what you thought of in your mind. It's not the adventure you thought it was. The thinking, the wanting of the adventure is the beautiful part. But once you're there, once you're doing the adventure that you believe is what's going to make everything better, it's never what it actually seems or is.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think it.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. So once again, I'm gonna try this one more time. I'm gonna repeat back
Okay,
to you
yeah.
what I heard, and you tell
All
me
right.
if it makes sense.
Okay, cool.
That, I mean, it can be summed up, I think, in it's about the journey, not the destination. And
Yeah.
and maybe kind of to be a little bit more detailed, it's sort of like it's the longing or the wanting that actually causes you to grow and to
Yes.
push and to strive. And when you actually achieve, that's not, I mean, everyone looks from the outside at the achievement, but for the achiever, it's somewhat dissatisfying. And actually, like what you appreciate is that there's like a force within you that propels you forward. And it's the force that propels you that's actually the really important part.
Yes. The longing is it's the flame that keeps you going, right?
What do you what do
Once
you
you
what do you
go ahead.
long for, Train?
See, so when I give advice, like on a surface level for surface level issues, nothing deeper, obviously I'll refer them to like a psychologist, psychiatrist, and we'll take care of the sessions and stuff. But like for like the surface level stuff, like the advice I give, I've done a lot of hard drugs in my past. Obviously, don't do drugs, anybody. It's dumb. Um, but what's gotten me out of them, what's allowed me to get out of these like heavy, heavy addictions is exactly what we're talking about now. It's this anchor. It's this longing of something, and I'll tell you in a second what it is, that I've buried deep, deep inside of me. And that longing for that special thing, I know I can never actually obtain it, but I know it's also not impossible. It's just improbable. But that small percent chance, the hope that one day I can is the flame, and it's what gets me through everything. It's what gets me out of everything. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, but I'm
So,
curious, what's the flame?
okay. So, okay. This is going to sound real dumb to a lot of people, but it is what it is, right? Um so my entire life, well, not my entire life, but my entire life, since like 15, 16, um I had this mountain spot I drive to. Okay. I drove to the top, to the highest point of the mountain, probably broke a couple laws to get there, but it's okay. It's not okay. You guys shouldn't break any laws to get anywhere, but I did. Um, I don't know why I had to announce that part, but you know what? Let's backtrack. There's a mountain spot, and I used to go up there. How I got there is irrelevant, but I got there. Um, and on this mountain spot, I'd always go late at night, and it was a place where I would reflect, I would think, I would kind of discover, you know, the true adventure at the start of everything is, discovery of self, in my opinion, right? Diving deep into your own mind and facing like the darkest, portions of yourself that, every day you tell yourself you're not. But at the end of the day, in order to find out who you are, you have to face these and figure out, you know, these different points. The high points are great, but I think the real journey and the real, path to like self-discovery is facing the darkest points of yourself. Anyways, so I'd go to these places and I'd stare out into the stars, and I'd stare out deep, I'd stare out past the stars, into the night sky. And it was almost like this like vision type thing that would happen in my mind. I would picture a world that best fit what I felt like this world should be, right? And I would see that world. I would see myself in that world. I'd see the purpose that I want, the storyline that everybody wants or that they see themselves in with the TV series they best relate to. And I'd see that for me, right? In a world that I think is possible to get to, no matter how, improbable it might be, but I think it's, still possible. And I picture that world. And what's in that world is that is my longing. It's the adventure. It's the magic. It's to find something that is just less than, you know, just something that isn't, the uncharted, you know, something that isn't mapped, something that isn't ruined by the spoils of technology. Technology gets us, it tells us everything. It spoils the ending, right? Like, does that make any sense? Like,
Well,
I
it
yeah,
sounds like you want to explore.
yes, I want to explore, but I don't want to actually know. It's the unknowing that keeps me going, right?
Mm.
It's the possibility of something out there that cannot be explained, right? It's the inexplainable that keeps me going. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I'm still a little bit, I'm curious, like, when you say you pictured a world that you wanna live in, what does that look like?
It's more of a feeling than it is a look.
What is that
Um,
feeling?
I mean, the feeling is it's adventure, magic, it's loyalty, it's brotherhood, you know, it's, you know, um,
Hmm.
I think it's things that we see in these like, it's the connections that we see in these like these TV series or these movies of these like heroes or villains that have this connection that we'll never see in this world. And when we do, if we do, it's a once in a lifetime, one out of 7 billion people type of right.
What kind of
It's a longing
connection?
for a yeah, it's a longing for a brotherhood, right? I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Sure. I mean, so
Like
longing for
a
brotherhood makes sense. You know,
it's like a
yeah.
adventure, magic. That's the best way I can explain the emotion
Okay.
that I feel. Does that
Let
make any
me
sense?
yeah, let me toss something out. So then you tell me, right? Because you're
Okay.
tossing something out. Let's
Yeah,
see
yeah.
what we heard.
Okay.
So, I mean, I get the sense of like you're going on a journey, right? And you don't know where you're going to end up. It's kind of uncharted waters, but you're not doing it alone. And it's going to be hard. It's not going to be like easy. Like the things that you're going to have to face aren't going to be like zits and retweets on Twitter. It's going to be
Yes.
like real challenge, right? Like the
It's the
kind of challenge.
trials and tribulations of it, right?
Yeah,
It's what go ahead.
but also like to share those with people. Like
Yes.
it's kind of like, doing something more than what you can accomplish as an individual, but like working with a band of people to, you know,
It's what keeps that it's what brings those band of people together, right? It's the
mm,
trials and tribulations. It's the
unity.
yeah, it's the see, I think what builds real unity, and this is what I talk about all the time. Like, I think the reason I am the way I am is because of I feel like my generation was the last generation to like, have a little biker gang or a GoPed gang or a little, scooter gang of your friends and you'd, dominate the neighborhoods and go through the canals. You'd buy smoke bombs at the store and act like you're all CIA agents, on a secret mission, but it's really just you and three others and it's your imagination that's working. I think it's yeah, it's just having an actual, you know, having like yeah, you know, I'm not sure. Keep going. I think you're going well before I cut you off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so what I'm hearing is it's kind of like a sense of like it sounds like you're partying up, like you've got your crew and what you really long for is to like share experiences with other people that bring you together and like that those experiences are real and challenging and authentic.
Yeah. Yes, and I just want there to be something that matters, right? Something that hmm, doing something that matters I think is the most important part. Being a part of something that's hmm,
Train, what do you do that matters?
um uh I don't know. I guess advice streams maybe. I don't know. The
Do you
advice
feel
stream I think is
do you feel like you do things that matter even if you can't name them?
yeah, I think I do, but I think when I have to say them out loud, I think it takes away from it a little bit. Does that make any sense? I
Yeah, it
feel like the things
makes a
that
lot of sense.
matter when you have to say them out loud, which sucks a lot of times. I feel like I'm in a position with how people see me. I feel like I have to sometimes I'm in a position where I have to say them out loud, and it hurts me the most when I have to. But I feel like I need to because a lot of times the complete opposite narrative is written, right? So I'm put in a situation where I need to say them out loud, but I feel like it just really diminishes
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think that
does
that
that make
makes
any
sense.
sense?
Yeah, because I think, so if I can just share a story with you. So
Yeah,
I
go
had
ahead.
a patient who was suicidal, and we had an appointment on a Wednesday, and they came in on Wednesday and they said, it was bizarre. I was acutely suicidal on Tuesday morning, and I'd actually decided to kill myself. I was like, oh my goodness, it's kind of weird, right? Because you're here today, something happened. And then
Yeah,
I kind of talked to them and I was like, so, what happened? And they said, well, I figured like if I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to have at least my favorite candy bar before I die. So I decided to just walk out of my apartment. It was like 10 a.m. Walked out of my apartment, walked to like the store, you know, like near my place. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to go get my candy bar. So I got my candy bar, went to the checkout counter and bought the candy bar. And the person on the other side, like the cashier, basically like smiled at me and was like, have a nice day. And like we chatted for a few minutes.
yeah,
And I don't know what happened, but like something in that moment, like I was just so hopeless and like thought that I was a complete piece of shit and that I didn't deserve to be here and I was like burdening everyone. And that
yeah,
like people, you care about me because you're my doctor and it's your job to care about me. My parents care about me because they're my parents and it's their job to care about me. Everyone cares about me not because of who I am, but because they're supposed to. And here's this one person that doesn't have to care about me in any way, shape, or form. There's no tip, right? It's not like it's just a cashier. And it's like, and yet this person somehow like did something that made me realize like, oh, actually, like maybe I do have value. And if you think about the description, buying something and a cashier saying have a nice day, it doesn't capture the magnitude of what actually happened in that moment. And what I'm hearing you say is that maybe when you impact people, when you describe it, it doesn't capture the magnitude of what actually happens in those moments. And anytime you try to put it to words, something is lost.
well, and also I feel like not only that, yes, and not only that, I feel like talking about it removes the initial intention of like, so like I just like to do these things. It's just how I'm wired.
Yep.
When you talk about it, it almost sounds as if you're doing it in order for it to be seen, for you to be seen that way, like a manipulation
Yep.
of it to gain something, right? So that's also the other thing. Does that make sense? It's almost like the psychology behind talking about what you do that's good versus just doing it and expecting no one to know and nothing to come from it, right? So that's why I don't like talking about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
but
I'm
that
with you.
story you gave, I like that a lot. That story you gave, I heard that before from you, and I actually talked about that to my stream. That's really, really, I love that because it's that small little ripple effect that that's the beauty I'm talking about. Like
So,
that's the beauty.
Train,
Go
can
ahead.
I? Okay, so a couple times now you've asked me, does this make sense? And I'm not sure if I'm making sense. Can I actually try to like play that card myself?
Yes.
So I want to share something with you that I'm afraid isn't going to make sense. And
Perfect.
and it's going to be kind of weird and abstract. It's actually a principle from spirituality. Because I think what you
Perfect.
you mentioned is actually very well understood in like Buddhism and Hinduism. So we oftentimes do things that are good or bad, and then we oftentimes talk or not talk about the things that happen to us that are good or bad. Okay, I know it sounds weird, so I'm not gonna make sense. But basically, like I can do something good and I can share it, or I can do something good and not share it. And or what I can do is something bad can happen to me and I can share it, and or something bad can happen to me and I can not share it. With me?
Yes.
So what impact does sharing have on what you did?
Nothing at all, right? Like
Disagree.
nothing at all.
Disagree.
Really?
Yes. Because you're telling me that when I share what I do, something
Well,
feels
negatively.
diminished.
Well,
Does
I mean, nothing negatively impacts it. Positively, possibly, right? Because you spread that
no,
and
I
others might
think
hear
I
it.
no, but listen to what you're saying. You're telling me when I tell people what I do, it feels diminished. That's actually what you're telling me, right? So just because it's logically doesn't make sense doesn't mean that that's not what you're saying. I think it does make sense. It's just very few people understand this. You're telling me that I don't like to talk about it because it feels like I lose something. That's what you're telling me, right? Can we agree on that? I think there's more power there than you realize, and that's why I want to try to explain it.
I think what I'm saying is, I don't think you lose something. I think it's it's like this invisible, under the table, unspoken rule. For example, like if I decide to offer to buy lunch, right? I don't bring it up and tell everyone and hold it over the head and say, "Yo, I bought him lunch. I'm a good guy," right? You just kind of you go about it like it was nothing, right? Even if you sacrificed your lunch tomorrow in order to pay for this guy's lunch today, and tomorrow you're going to starve, you don't bring that out and make him feel bad about that. You take that L yourself. You take that battle yourself. You made a
Exactly,
decision to help him.
exactly.
Does that make
So,
sense?
so yeah, it makes perfect sense. But I'm just repeating back what you're actually saying is that advertising the L changes something,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
right? So, and it's weird, right? Because on the one hand, you're saying, oh, if you did something good, like, couldn't you spread positivity by sharing it with other people? But that's exactly what I'm saying. So, let's just think
Right.
about this, okay? So, talking about something diminishes its power. This is the principle that I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
And so, let's think about this. So, let's say that you had a traumatic event. So, like, you get abused growing up or something like that. You have this, like, thing inside you that lives within you and never gets expressed. And what it does is it like compounds and it grows,
Yes.
and you don't talk about it. And then you do something like you go to therapy and you talk about it. And what it does is diminish the power of that which you hold inside. Make sense?
Yes.
And then on the flip side, like good stuff. So if you talk about good things, there's also some kind of diminishing of the power on the inside. And we know this, right? Like we know that there are people who start companies and there are people who talk about starting companies. And these are
Yes.
very different people. One group loves to talk about it. One group doesn't say shit. Which one's more successful?
The group that does it and doesn't talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Right? So there are talkers and doers. And this goes to this very like deep principle from sort of like Eastern thinking that talking about something that you have a limited amount of energy, and the more that you put that energy out into the world by like talking about it, the more diminished you are. There's the guy who works out like 5 days a week and never tells a soul. And there's the dude who works out 3 days a week and wants to give workout advice to everyone.
Yeah.
Right? We know those
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
so this is also in the sort of Eastern science of mantra or mantra. A mantra is to be kept secret. And what a mantra is or mantra is like you chant it. You're it's given to you by like, a teacher of some kind. And then you're supposed to chant it and you don't share your mantra with anyone. Because what happens when you share your
Yeah.
mantra is you diminish your power. And a
Yeah.
mantra is almost like the opposite of a trauma. So a trauma is something that unless you share it, there's this negative energy within you that compounds and grows over time until you let it go. A mantra is a positive energy that every day you tell it to yourself, it grows within you. And the second you tell another soul, it gets vented out. And it starts to compound and grow. But it's positive.
Yes.
And
I
if you
like that.
don't
Yeah.
share it with someone, it's like you can feel it and it's there and it's pure and it's real and you can impact that person because you're sharing a piece of your energy with them. But like if you tell other people, like some of that energy that would have gone their way or would have gone to you goes to other people in like some sort of weird egotistical way. And I think at the end of the day, it just goes to this general principle that talking diminishes the power of what is inside you. And we use that in therapy because we want to diminish the power of something inside them. And then, there are people who are egotistical and brag all the time and they never get anything done. And it's the same principle as like therapy because they're letting all that shit out so it doesn't exist within them. And even if we hear your story, there's something deeply personal in not sharing about you driving up to the mountaintop. And that's when you cultivate that flame within you. You go to this place and you don't show anyone, but you take this fire inside you, this magic, this sense of adventure, this longing for brotherhood, and you put fuel on it. And you don't tell anyone.
Yep.
It's not something you advertise. I mean, you could talk about it after the fact. And so then what you do is you kindle it, right? You nurture it and it grows.
Yep. That's right.
And every time someone who's experienced trauma like sits in like the darkness of their bathroom and like feeds that trauma and thinks about it and has the negative emotions, they kindle it and it grows. It's what happens in anxiety when we feed our mind. When you give into those anxious thoughts, they breed more anxious thoughts. And then you think through those and they breed more anxious thoughts. And then you become overwhelmed and you have to check out. Your mind just blanks. It like short circuits. You have to find games, you have to find drugs, or you just have to pass out. Anything to pass out, anything to forget, anything to unplug. Same principle. The power of mantra is that it's just like a good thing. So eventually when you do mantra a lot, you get to this phase called ajap jap. So jap is doing mantra. And ajap is the autopilot of mantra. When the mantra automatically repeats itself in your mind all the time. And you no longer have to consciously develop it. And then it's like, it kind of puts it on like, farm. Like it's just auto farming. You're like botting the mantra. And then it like grows in positivity. What do you think about that? Sorry, that was like a kind of random tangent.
No, I liked it. I go on tangents all the time, believe me. I liked it and I appreciate the passion. No, I agree with that. I like that a lot. And for me, yeah, you're right. So I don't explain it. I usually keep the deeper internal like meaning of what I feel to myself.
Yep.
But the embodied like feeling or what it does for me, that's what I share, right? So a lot of times I refer to it as an anchor. And I usually refer to it as, make your anchor something that life can't take away, right? So it can't expire or it can't, someone can't disprove it, right? Nothing can ever take it away. And that's why if you put that as an anchor, that anchor will get you out of, well, I don't want to say will get anyone out, but we'll get most people out of, the deepest of pickles.
Yeah,
I use pickle in a more casual way to make it a little better, but deepest of issues. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that your experience has been that if you can find that right anchor, it has, grounded you through lots of trials and tribulations.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like, so with my drug usage, right? What I experienced and what I saw my peers in the drug world experience is they wanted to find a world, a metaphysical world within the physical world that gave them or resulted in a better feeling or a better constant feeling than what they felt normal, natural, not high. Now, how I feel when I think of what my anchor is, it is the greatest feeling in the world. It is filled with hope. It is filled with adventure, magic. It is filled with storylines and just, all these crazy, trials and tribulations that test loyalties and friendships and actually give me some, right? And this feeling is better than any high in the world. So no matter how deep I am into an addiction, the craving for that grounds me and brings me back to reality and allows me to leave it. But if your high is the highest peak for you, if that is the best feeling, then it's very hard to get out of that delusion to want to get out. And that's part of for addiction, for at least for me, you have to want to stop. If you don't want to stop, it doesn't matter how many rehabs you go to, it doesn't matter how many things you're forced to do, you'll find a way back, right? Your next low point, that's what you're resorting to, right? So that's kind of
Train, how
what
do
it is for
people?
me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful principle.
Yeah.
What I wonder is like, how does someone find that anchor? Right? Because it sounds like a very special thing.
I think so. My mom, so it's weird because my parents, they work perfectly, but they're total opposites. My dad is this very like objective mathematical man. Everything is on a time clock. Like comes from a military family, like everything same time, every bedtime same time. We're talking to the T, 9 p.m. flat, right? 1 minute over, like it's all hell breaks loose in his mind, right? Everything he shows up to, it's always early, never late, ever late, right? My mom, on the other hand, is total opposite. My mom isn't guided by the mathematics or the objectiveness of things. She's more of a free flowing spiritual, feels as she goes, energy, right? And my dad finds all that bullshit, and my mom finds all the other side too serious. So they're both the total opposites, and they both are like huge impacts for me. So I gathered from both ends, and what I guess that gave me like a perfect insight on so many different things, right? It allowed me to dive deep into my spiritual side without it fueling any delusions of grandeur, right? A lot of times, if you go into the spiritual side, these emotions take over, and emotions start, an overabundance of them lead to ego, and they lead to you believing that you're here and you're different than everybody and you're special and God has put you here for a certain reason. And all that's good as long as you can stay grounded. If you can't stay grounded, you begin to feel delusions, and you begin to get misguided and carried away, and you start using that as a justification for many terrible things that lead you away from yourself, right? On the other hand, if you're completely just, mathematical, objective, et cetera, I don't think you feel as much, right? That piece of your humanity is taken away by this concrete feeling of just emotionless, just numbers and scales, and everything's predicted, and which makes it very boring. Now, to get to my point, I was always told, right? So I've always wanted to explore, like you gathered from earlier, but I've always been told the greatest exploration is, diving deeper inside, inward. So I think that the best way to find it is to want to dive deeper into yourself. It's like through self-discovery, and part of that self-discovery, it gives you a lot more than an anchor. It gives you confidence. People ask where confidence comes from. People ask where, how can I sit there and be called ugly by everybody and be called deformed or Neanderthal and still look at myself in OBS and see myself as the most beautiful man in the world, right? It comes from accepting yourself and realizing, your PowerPoints. Now, I know physically I'm not the best looking man, right? I give myself an 8.5 out of 10, which is very superficial and objectifying to put a scale on it, but 8.5, right? But I know the embodiment, right? The presence, the voice, right? All these together make me the best looking man on Twitch. So these things come from self-discovery. Does that make any sense? As soon as you become content with who you are, right? And that's where all this comes from, right?
So Train, I'm kind of with you in principle, but I've got kind of like, how here are the two questions. And
real quick.
Yeah.
Before you ask those two questions, I wore those headphones. Can I run to the restroom real quick?
Yep. And I'm going to grab water.
Perfect. Give me those two, or you grab. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Just
whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm going to grab water. Go run to the restroom. All right.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah. I got to juice up.
It's all that coffee. Banned for unattended webcams. Interesting, huh, chat? I drink a glass of water in a can. Yeah. Sometimes when I eat things that are like a little bit fatty and delicious, I need some carbonation to help me burp. It is sparkling water from Whole Foods. We should have gotten a sponsorship for that too. How's the meal sitting? It's good. Train is a lively guy, so makes it fun to talk to.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so here are my questions, Train. So the first, in a general sense, is like you say, you have to like look in, right? You have to look in yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And kind of tacked onto that is, for a lot of people, anytime they look inside, all they see is shit. So what do you do about that?
So for me, I actually enjoy loneliness. So for my bipolar stuff, the depressive side, I actually enjoy a lot. I enjoy being alone. Of course, the feelings, I have to battle myself, but I spend a lot of time by myself. When I go to dinner, I book for one, right? People look at me like I'm weird, but I enjoy it. And I just feel like when I'm with someone, it's always meaningless conversations. And when I say meaningless, I don't mean to like deteriorate, you know, other people's feelings or what they want to talk about, but it's usually these just, I don't know, there's, it's just, you know, hey, what's up? How are you doing? You know, not much you. And then it ends there, right? And then we talk about like a dog or, you know, Fortnite, you know, just, it's just lack of depth, you know? So I just eat by myself. I enjoy my food. It's just, you know, food's just so beautiful. It's such an amazing, amazing thing, especially if, you know, you go to a restaurant where the chef, you know, loves, the hell is this thing? Is this a fruit fly? The hell? Anyways, what you doing, boy? Okay, anyways. Yeah, so it's, I appreciate my loneliness. And in that loneliness, I found a friend, which is myself.
Hmm.
And that friend has been the best friend I've ever had, right? It's the me. All of us have that inner voice, right? That inner voice is whether it's our subconscious, whether it's, you know, the back of our minds that we usually ignore because it's telling us what we need to do, you know, the things that we push back and, you know, blah, 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 etc. Anyways, so what was the second question?
Yeah,
How
so
do, oh
but
yeah,
like so let's say I go to
right,
dinner
sorry.
with myself. But the thing is like on the inside, I feel like I'm an asshole, I'm worthless, I haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah, so
Cuz it sounds like you're a pleasant person to sit with. But a lot of people in our community don't like who they are on the inside, right?
it's,
They're
yeah,
failures and lonely.
it's because, okay, the shit, everyone has their shit, right? I have my shit, you have your shit, everyone has their shit. The problem is in today's world, what we try and do, what we're taught to do, whether it's through whatever social structure that is put in front of us, whether it's companies, whether it's the American dream, whatever the fuck it is, right? We're taught to try and one up everybody. So from early on, if someone gets new Jordans, we either need to get those Jordans or we need to get something better, right? We're constantly in this catch up game, and the catch up game puts us in a position where there's a constant front being set. That front neglects and ignores the entire journey that usually gets us to the place that we're fronting, that we're acting like we're at. So if you look at every Instagram, every Facebook, every stream, right? All you see is the highlights, the person at his strongest. Now, what this does is in the public sphere, right? The way chat works, the way comments work, the way everything works. Everyone is either shit talking it or saying what they have. But in reality, deep down when they're alone, they feel like shit because they see everyone doing well and themselves doing shitty. The problem is they're setting standards of where they should be based on where others are are telling them they're at. But if we were actually all truthful with each other, we'd realize that all of us are actually a lot more alike and all in the same shit together. I think a lot of the times the shit everyone deals with, they think they're dealing with it alone and their life is terrible and shitty. But in reality, it's a lot more normalized and average than they think. I think all of us, even you yourself, even me myself, I might, you know, people might look at me and say, oh, he's rich as hell. He makes this much money. He should be happy, right? But it's like, that's just what's seen, right? That's what's, does that make any sense? Or a
Yeah.
relationship. You see a couple kissing, you see a couple, you know, traveling from destination to destination, and we assume, wow, what a nice relationship. I don't have that. These guys, they must be happy. But we don't see the in-betweens. And this is everywhere in life. TV series, you know, movies. We see the highlights of everything, and the highlights are always the best. And we compare ourselves to them. And it is the most unrealistic comparison ever, right? Because if we actually saw the truth behind these relationships, we'd actually realize that where we're at individually is exactly where they're at, or we might even be better. But the problem is, today's world, we only see the best of everything. Therefore, we never feel adequate to everything. So until you can come to some sort of realization that, until we can normalize everyone coming out and saying, yo, you know, like I am, you know, this is not the case, you know, or I don't know what I'd call it. Does that make any sense? So
Yeah,
that's the
so
first step we need to crops.
Here's what how I'd summarize. I'd say that one of the big problems is that we compare our insides to other people's outsides.
Yeah.
Right? So like when you see someone, like let's say it's the end of your semester and everyone's doing your class like end of semester presentation with your class.
Yeah.
And you go up there and you give your presentation and you feel every ounce of anxiety racking your body, but you've trained, you've practiced, and you end up giving a pretty decent presentation. But
Yeah.
your experience of it was dominated by your perception of the zit, the pimple.
Yes.
Right? You saw the pimple and like that's what you see. And then you see other people go on stage and they give their presentation. They're every bit as anxious as you, but you don't
That's right.
see any
You
of
don't see
it.
it. And they don't tell you why, because we've been trained in its way where we don't want people to know how shitty it is. We want them to know that we're living the life and this was easy for us. And then what this does is it perpetuates this unrealistic idea of what life should be if you're successful, happy, and smart. But in reality, if we told them the truth that, holy shit, this A that I got wasn't that easy. I sat there. First of all, my parents made me do it. I didn't want to do it at all. Second of all, when I sat there for 8 hours, I didn't want to do it at all. That shit was boring as hell. I didn't understand it one bit. I had to hire 6 different tutors just to understand the first equation. No one's going to admit those parts. So you assume that this guy must be intelligent and he has it easy, but in reality, he hated every minute of it. And this is what I've noticed. Even in school, when I saw the kids come in here and take the test and get A's, right? I'm like, damn, this guy, wow, I hated that shit. Then him and I would become friends. I'd go for a study session. This dude, he's got hooked on phonics. He's got fucking the Stanford ACT study guide. He's got 6 different tutors on Skype, Zoom, and FaceTime, right? It's not what you think based on what they're showing. And that's the problem. We're basing what we should be off of what other people are saying they are. But in reality, what everybody is exactly where does that make any sense?
Yeah, man. I think it does. I think it's, I think it gets to this idea. You're kind of saying there's something, you keep on mentioning society here and there. And I think what I'd say kind of just to echo that is that like, I think that's where the idea of smart and talented, so I think the problem is that as a society, we honor and value intelligence and talent, which I think is a huge problem. So we don't value hard work and effort. And so what happens when someone does a good job is we call them smart. And then what happens is if they're smart, it's like a stat on your character sheet. It's not changeable. I've got a 14 on int and they have an 18 on int, so they're just going to be a better mage than I am. There's like nothing I can do about it. But the truth is they've got a 14 on int too. It's just they have buffs, which are like, other things like tutors or whatever. Or being Iranian and the son of like engineers, or in my case, being Indian and the son of doctors. And I just sold out faster than you did. And so went to med school.
Well, I was going to be in law school, but I dropped X. This ended up working out. But yeah.
Yeah. Good. I mean,
yeah.
Good for you, man.
So we both sold out. Yeah. We both sold out. We're both good. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of interesting, right? So then like what I'm curious about is, so how do you, I guess maybe I should ask you, how did you stop comparing yourself to other people? How did you?
I didn't. I still do. I think, so this is the answer that I think proves what I'm trying to say. If I were to sit here and say, oh, I've found a point where I stopped comparing myself, right? Because I'm trying to like somehow give off this aura that I've
figured it out.
Crazy.
You haven't figured it out.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, I haven't figured it out. I still compare myself. I still look at shitty comments. I still look at other people and saying, damn, he's doing well. I should be at that point. I'm dead compared to them, right? Like, but it's just my experience that's taught me to step back instead of making that thought comes to my mind still. I still feel the negative effects of it. But the difference is that's not where it ends. The thought will be there no matter what. No matter what solution I find to the problem, the thought will always be there because unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And see, that's the problem. That's the problem with, I think, today. It's like the lack of education on. There is no cure to these things. There is just understanding them and finding out how to manage them, right? So I will never hit a point where I just completely stop doing this. This is always going to be in my mind. It's always going to be there. Now, how I take it and how I battle it, and whether I decide that that's the conclusion of, that's the difference in it. So these days, when it comes to me, my initial and the initial and the middle part of that thought, it goes. But at the end, I'm like, yo, you know what? It looks good. It looks like he's doing good. But hey, I've been there. At the end of the day, he has his battles, right? So like, I bring it back down to reality, right?
Yeah.
Everyone, does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from you is well said, especially when it comes to mental illness, which is sort of, I don't entirely believe what I'm about to say, but that there's no cure, there's only management.
Yeah,
You
for
know?
some of them, yeah.
Yeah. And I
Well,
think
I guess,
that, um, and even then, I don't necessarily believe that there isn't a cure for some. I tend to hold on to hope, but um,
yeah,
I think it speaks to kind of this idea that we have, and you said it really well, that like from the outside, right? So we look at you and we hear you saying these things, and there's this assumption that you've conquered something and
yeah,
that it's done for you now. But actually, we're falling into the same trap then and there because you haven't conquered anything, and that you still struggle with it. And like that's the whole point, is that we look at other people and we say, "Oh, this person is disciplined. He's conquered his laziness. It's over for him. He's set for life. I'm not
yeah,
like him because I haven't conquered my discipline. I mean, my laziness." And I think part of the problem that keeps us stuck is that we look for a solution based on what we see, even though that solution does not actually exist. This is why our community is stuck, is because they think, "Oh, I need discipline because that's what this person has." But they're looking for something that doesn't exist.
exactly.
And so they
And
look and they look and they look and they don't find it and they don't find it and they don't find it. And it reinforces this idea that like laziness, like I'm way too lazy and I'm never going to find discipline and I'm going to be a failure
that's
in
right.
life because I'm not like them.
Yeah,
And I still maintain that like laziness is basically a generally human characteristic. I'm very lazy. And I think people don't realize that
me
you just
too.
have to learn how to deal with it.
That's
Right?
exactly right.
I don't think you should stop being lazy. I think you should just be better at being lazy. You should just be more
That's right.
efficient.
No, you're right. And to further go in, because I just thought of something, right? I think one of the biggest things that's helped me in my life, right, is this. So I think the question is, how do you figure out that the other person, how do you not compare yourself, and how do you realize that he's no different than you? He's just working a little harder, or managing. I think there's a certain age, right? I like to put it between like 16 and 24 from my experiences and viewing of others, blah, 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 right? There's like an age, I'd say 16 and 24, maybe 25, where we go through these delusions of grandeur, right? It's this age where you truly believe you have a special skill. You can read people. You know exactly, you know, things that, I've guessed these guys' professions, what they do, but, all these different things that just totally reinforce this idea that, these delusions of grandeur you have, that you're special, talented, more intelligent, right? Sometimes these things make you lazy because, anyways, the point is, now, if you have a proper, like, whether it's parents or a mentor that can tell you, listen, you're not different, you're not special, you're just like everybody else, right? Don't get carried away. Like that keeps you grounded. We need somehow to get to a point where we all realize that we're all the same, right? Like, when I say all the same, obviously we're all different in our own respects, but at the end of the day, I do believe there's a certain human psychology behind all of us, right? And that's why things like this work, psychology, psychiatry, right? Things in this field, which I guess, you know, I won't go that route. But the point is, what I'm trying to say is, okay, the moment, okay, let me think about this. The best example I can give is, right? So at a young age, our parents usually project their mistakes onto us, right? And tell us, you know, based on their experiences of their trial and errors, what we need to do, what the right path is. And a lot of the times most of us, I'd say 90% plus, resort in some sort of, you don't know me. These guys are different. You don't know my life. I know better. I know this. I know that. And most of us that I think can admit it realize that 90% of the time our parents were right. Now, if you can think about how that could be possible, how is it possible that parents that are from a different generation, different time, much older than you, have never spent a second in your shoes or your situation, How could they have the right answer to a situation that you swore, that you felt, every bone in your body told you that they were wrong and they happen to be right? How is that possible? You begin to realize, holy shit, maybe I'm not so different. Maybe I don't, maybe maybe there is some sort of, you know, a middle ground that we all go through. And the real trick to life is, you know, putting that ego aside and being able to learn from the mistakes of others rather than having to make the mistakes of our own, right? And then learn from those and then be in the same boat as everybody else, right? So if you can like go deep into thinking, how is it possible that older people can perfectly predict situations based on their own mistakes of the same exact situations they went through? And how could these situations from different times have the same exact conclusions, right? You begin to think, holy shit, right? There must be some sort of system to these things. There must be some sort of like
Rules to the
this
game.
rules to the game, right? And I think that is one of the biggest things, understanding that sure, you have your special, you have your things that make you unique to yourself, right? Your personality, right? The way the experiences in your life have shaped you. Maybe that's different. But as far as the rules to the game, if you can come to a place where you realize that you're not so different and you begin to realize that everyone else is in the same exact place you're in, that's when you get to a more realistic place where you begin to realize that this life that you're assuming that this person has based on this picture or the grade he got isn't what it actually is. He is going through exactly what you're going through. The only difference is maybe he's come to a conclusion that maybe would take you 4 more years to realize. All right, it comes down to maturity, in my opinion, right? Some of us understand what I'm saying at 30, some understand at 40, some understand after they fail 10 tests. Some can look at it and understand before the 10 tests and end up passing the 10 tests. And this comes down to understanding what you want versus what you need to do, right? When you're young, everything's at what you want. I hear a lot of stories of I'm in college right now. I don't want to do this. I want to become a doctor, but I took this class and it was boring as hell. I don't want to be a doctor anymore. What they realize is that that's in everything. Even if you
Train,
find
do you
what
mind
you
if I
want to
jump in
do.
for a second?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Just because I think you're
I'm
moving
stuck in
into
a
a
rant. Yeah.
no, no. I mean,
Yeah,
I think there's a lot that you said that was really good that I just want to try to capture because I think it
yeah,
is
go ahead.
so important. Um, and I think you did a good job of actually explaining it. It's just I don't want it to get lost with the next thing. Uh, and it kind of comes back to this idea of like rules of the game. So I think what I'm hearing when you say things like delusions of grandeur is I think some people feel like they're playing by a different set of rules. And what I'm hearing you say is that like there's a realization that comes when you used your parents' example, for example, there's a realization that actually the rules are all the same. Like you look at the person who's smart and talented, who's disciplined, and it's like he's not playing a game that I'm playing. It's easy for him. His rules are, he's playing on easy mode and I'm playing on hard mode. Because when he like rolled his character, he got the discipline trait and I got the lazy trait. And it's a completely different game. And what I'm hearing you say is that like especially in the age in this range between 16 and 24 and maybe what we call maturity is when we assume that the rules of the game are different for us, that my parents don't understand because they were playing a different game. They can't understand because I'm
Yeah,
individual and I'm unique and my rule set is all the is
yeah,
different from theirs. And what I'm hearing you from you is that like at some point there's a realization, holy shit, how can my parents be right unless the rules are the same? Right? And
yeah,
that realization that like actually the person who has it all together is actually playing on hard mode too. Because if we assume that the other person's strategy is with a different rule set, no wonder we can't duplicate it. If you play the game on easy mode and you come up with a particular strategy that works, that same strategy won't work on hard. And what we end up doing is we attribute their success to like a different rule set. And when we try to duplicate it, it doesn't work. And instead,
yeah,
what we need to do is like assume for a moment that we're all playing the same game, that they
yeah,
struggle every day too. And once we factor that in and assume they're not smart, talented, or disciplined, and assume that they struggle every day, then we'll find a road to success.
yes. That's right. And here's the crazy part. This sounds like one of those. This sounds like one of those dumb realizations you make when you're high or something, when you smoke your first blunt, whenever you smoke it, right? This sounds like one of those, but it's not. The true different, the true different is realizing you're not different, right? That's my honest opinion. We see this everywhere, but we don't actually process it. How many, and I know movies and TV series, I went into a thing how they're not realistic, but I think this singular message that's hidden within all of it, I think this is the one realistic part. The grass is always greener on the other side. When we view that smart person that we view as smart, but maybe just puts a lot of work and doesn't actually get it and doesn't come as easily to them as we assume it does, right? You better bet your ass he's looking at the not so smart person that might be good with people. And to him, every day he feels the same pain that that person feels about him being smart, right? We're all in the same field. All of us, like, it's not this great, amazing thing. I mean, and here's what I mean by the messages in these movies, right? How many times have we seen the movie where the superhero that has everything, super strength, the girl, super speed, all he wants to be is normal. And then all the normal person wants to be is him, right? What do we gather from this? We gather that there is we gather that we've somehow been trained to always want what we're not. And the problem with that is it makes us skip the most important part of our lives, which is accepting what we are, appreciating what we are, and starting our path to self-discovery, which leads to true contentment and confidence, right? The problem is we're trained to never appreciate those things, so we can never even start to begin to self-discover because we're always trying to be someone that we're, right? Does that make any sense? You feel me on that?
Yeah, I feel you. I think you stopped at the worst part though, because you were about to tie it together.
Yeah. So
anyway, I can
yeah,
give it a shot if
yeah,
you'd like.
yeah. Give it a shot.
Yeah. So
I'm
I mean,
gonna grab a water while you. I have
yeah.
wireless headphones, so I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Grab your water. I'm just gonna compose my thoughts for a second because it's distracting while you're walking around to try to talk at your empty chair. So I'll just collect my thoughts. Chad, it sounded like he just stopped. He was like just like there, right? It was like just about to nut. And he's like, "Am I making sense?" And it's like, "Damn it, man." Okay.
Got it. My St. Pellegrino right here. All right, go ahead.
Sparkling or still?
Sparkling.
Hell yeah, baby.
Yeah, stuff.
So Train, here's kind of what I heard you say. So like, so it kind of comes down to sort of recognizing that, the as you said, the real difference is in recognizing that things aren't different. And I heard you say a lot about sort of like the first step forward is to kind of accept where you are, which I mean, I totally agree with all this stuff. So I think, I think there's a really funny contradiction. It's not really a contradiction, but what seems like maybe a contradiction to what you said earlier about, wanting in that flame is what keeps you forward and is what's enjoyable. Because now, and I don't think these are actually contradictions, so I'll resolve this in a second. But what I'm hearing you say is that like it's our striving to be something that we are not that causes problems. It's our sort of assumption that, oh, there is this thing, like there's a smart, disciplined, talented person, and then there's me. And we long to be that person. And we don't recognize, so the first piece of this is that we don't recognize that that person is actually the same as we are, and that they struggle too, and they may not be smart or disciplined or talented, or maybe they are, but that are fundamentally like we're all like what binds us together as human beings is still shared, even though we are individual people. We all have struggles. There's also sort of this idea that the grass is always greener on the other side, and what people find is that they chase the next thing that will make their life easy. They look to conquer so that they don't have to work anymore. It's like once I develop confidence, then everything will be easy. The problem right now is that I lack confidence. How do I develop confidence? And they think, okay, one day I'll have confidence and then I'll be like Train. And then I'll understand everything and then everything will be easy. And so we're always chasing the next thing. We're always
Yeah.
looking to level up. And bizarrely, I think what I heard from you is subtle, because you say that it's like the wanting that is your anchor, right? So
Yeah.
early on, you said the wanting is your anchor, and so then the argumentative part of me says, but how is that a problem? Because what you're saying is that like everyone else is striving to be something else. So isn't that their anchor? Isn't wanting to go to the other side where the grass is greener? Isn't that your anchor? Isn't that what you were saying? But I think there's a very, very subtle difference between what you said in the first half of the conversation
There
and
is.
what you're
Yeah.
saying now.
Yeah, there is.
And
When
and I
you
here's how I would describe it.
go ahead.
I think the difference between the first half and the second half is you said something very tiny, which was that the acceptance that you may never get it. The appreciation that I may never actually end up on the other side where the grass is greener, but I'm going to try to get there. It's the
Yes.
acceptance that you're going to move in that direction, is as opposed to focusing on the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yes.
One is very
Yeah.
focused on the outcome of becoming this thing that you're
Yes.
not. And
Yeah.
and it's almost like looking into the future and looking at the end game, looking at the last 5 minutes of the movie. And the other is like starting where you are and pointing yourself in a direction of where you go. But one is about being where you are and trying to move forward from there. That's healthy because you say, I'm going to try to move forward. It's very different but subtle, which is the exact opposite of looking at somewhere and saying, I want to go to there.
Yes.
One is about looking at the end point, and one is looking at the starting point. And as long as you're looking at the starting point, I think you'll move in the right direction. And generally speaking, you'll be happy, because when you're at the starting point, you make no expectations or guarantees, and therefore no disappointment about not ending up where you want to go.
That's right. And
But
it's
when
primarily because that one that you're talking about, that's an idea. That's why. The one that is this fueling the immortal flame that will never go out, knock on wood. It's supported by an idea, right? Whereas most of our flames, without proper self-discovery, are supported by some sort of cheap replacement of an idea, some sort of something physical that you can see and grab, and that's always that's the trick in life, right? Like if you can find an idea that best reflects who you want to be, who you are, no matter how achievable it is, no matter how realistic that it is, it's an idea of what you think you need to be in a world that you think best reflects and best suits the potential of who you need to be and can be, right? One's an idea and one is a cheap pleasure. The problem is we've been trained to see these cheap pleasures as some sort of measure of success and measure of intelligence and measure of how happy we are. And those cheap pleasures are usually the end goal. The problem is when you set that as an end goal, the flame ends. The flame goes out as soon as you get it. And once you lose the flame, when you get there, you don't know how to reignite that flame again. But if you make your end goal an idea, something immortal that can never be stripped and never fully achieved because it's continuously growing on itself, right? That is the true level of an anchor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, sorry.
I would also add, like, I think that begs a question, which I hear, which I'm going to go ahead and answer, which is like, how do you tell what's an idea and what's a cheap pleasure? Right? How can you differentiate the two? And I understand that they're different, but I think the reason that
Yeah.
they're different, like you said, is that once again, one is about a particular goal. The idea is about a direction. It's not about a destination. And what you're
Yes.
saying is, I think you set a particular ideal that is so far in the future that it's never achievable. But I think the key thing there is that, like, when it's never achievable, you don't think about the end, or you may think about the end, but you're really focused on taking the next step forward. You're focused on the next step as opposed to the last step. And I think what you define as a cheap pleasure is when people are focused on the last step. And the thing about an achievable goal is you can't, an unachievable goal is what I think you describe as an idea, is that by nature of it being an idea, it's never achievable. And therefore you protect yourself from thinking about the last step. And you always think about,
Well,
how can I move forward towards this thing?
it's not that it's not achievable. It's that each step that you achieve, it grows on itself and you have to keep going. It's an infinite journey. It's an infinite adventure, right? So look at
Right.
World of
So
Warcraft, for example, right? World of Warcraft, there's a quest line. There's a story that, for those of you that like this storylines in games, we love. As soon as we hit the max level and it's over, eventually after 2, 3 months, we get bored of the game and we quit playing, right? Now imagine a quest line that forever continues, right? With new content, new lines you've never seen, new people, right? Just it's a journey that has no limit, a journey that has no ending, right? So it's not that it's not possible to achieve. It is, but it's continuously growing outward. Kind of I like space. You know how space is continuously
yeah,
just moving outward? That's
yeah.
like the idea you want to get to, right? A world that embodies who you are deep down. It reflects your deepest desires and emotions and happinesses. And that's another thing. I think the problem with today is we're sold this idea of an American dream, right? And the problem is that idea that's sold is, oh, sorry, I'm going to a different tangent. Let's finish this and I'll go into that. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think we're still sort of saying the same thing. And I think
Yeah, we are, I think. Yeah.
I think you really clarified, it's not so much about being unachievable as like continual achievement. But I still
Yes.
hear you
Yes.
kind of talking about, still saying the same thing, because you're saying you take one step forward and you add one step to the end of the road. And you take one step forward and then you add one step to the end of the road. And so I still think the crux of it, I think we agree that, like, and I really want people to understand this, that a lot of people think about the last step as opposed to the next step. And that's why they get stuck. Because the last step can be so hard to achieve and can feel so far away. Like, you look at this person who's successful and intelligent and disciplined, and you look at yourself and there's such a gap between here and there, you have no idea how to get started because you're focused on that end. And what you really should focus on is the next step. And so I sometimes ask people that I work with, like, what's the most important step that you can take? And some people say the first step, and I say incorrect. And then they say the last step, and then I say incorrect. And the answer is the next step. Oftentimes, bizarrely for our community train, they're good at taking the first step. They're good at waking up one day and saying, today I'm going to change, and they will change for that day.
Yep.
No more
I know.
video
Yeah, I know that.
games. And they'll stop for a day. It's day
Yep.
2 that's the problem. They're actually really good at doing it once. It's doing it again that's tricky.
Well, and if you look into why that is, I think that's the biggest problem with today's society, right? It's the lack of understanding, and I don't know if it's in, I don't know if it's whether it's something that's instilled with you at a young age, whether it's the parents, the guidance system. I don't know what it is, but it's the same thing I see with the gym, right? Or with anyone else, with anything else they need to do, right? It's the first day is easy. The first week might be easy. The first 2 weeks might be easy, right? That's not that's not the hard part. When you want to do something, you can get it done. The hard part is doing it when you don't want to do it and understanding why you need to do it, regardless if that want is there. It's that maturity that is what actually, that's what sets you apart. If you want to be set apart from your peers or from your age group, it's understanding at an early age that most of what will get you somewhere, most of what will get you or advance you with self-discovery or whatever you want to do in life, wherever you want to be, is understanding that most of what you need to do to get there, most of the stepping stones that are required to step onto in order to get to the, wherever you need to be, is understanding that you need to do what you need to do. The wanting part won't be there. And until that's realized, I think that's the main problem. Everyone, as soon as they lose the want, they start thinking, "Oh, this must not be what is right for me, because if I don't want to do it, then how could it be what I love?" That's the most unrealistic standard to set. You will find nothing in life. You'll find yourself changing majors 17 times just to
Mhm.
find out you're going to change it an 18th, right? it's understanding at an early age that it's about what you need to do, not what you want to do. Until we
Yeah.
can realize that, there's gonna
So
be a lot of
Train, I
issues.
think that sort of begs the question, how does one realize that?
Yeah, that's the question I'm gonna ask. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's I don't know.
So
I don't know.
oddly enough, I think I may have an answer. So I think Train is, you hit upon a really important principle, which is that a lot of times our behaviors are dictated by our desires. But that's how you lose control of life, right? We were talking about addiction earlier.
Yeah.
It's when what you want and the craving dictates what you do. I want to play League of Legends. I don't want to study. Therefore, I'm going to play League of Legends and I'm not going to study. So we live lives that are dictated by our desires and our wants instead of being dictated by our needs.
Yep.
So the question is like, how the fuck do you switch from one to the other? And the answer is actually relatively simple. So I've got a really simple exercise for you.
Okay.
The next time you have an option to eat something between that which you want and that which you want less. And I'm not saying like go on a drastic diet. I'm saying like, let's say you go to like a sandwich shop and you really, really love their like turkey sub. Get something else. Whatever your first choice is, when you have no pressure or no need to do anything, when you have full choice, you're not trying to go on a diet because a diet is restricting yourself. There's an end goal. You're sacrificing your desire for a greater desire to be in shape. Can't be a diet. In the simplest way, when you have a choice between, when you have complete and free choice between something that you want and something that you don't want, pick the thing that you don't want. So one good example is if you keep drinks in the fridge, take them out of the fridge. Drink them warm. No more drinks in the fridge. There's no reason to do that. There's no health benefit. There's no greater purpose. That's when
Well,
you need to act.
with water there is, I think.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Sorry,
But
go ahead.
anyway, my point is like pick the thing that there's no reason to do. And when you have a desire to do it one way and there's no reason to not do it that way, do it a different way. Because that is when you get the purest example of going against your desire.
I think that's a good challenge, and here's why. And this once again, this sounds like one of those high talk, not what you're saying, what I'm about to say. It sounds like one of those high talks. But that in itself, so here's like the paradoxical situation we're in. What you're asking them to do, right? That interesting maybe question they have in their minds, oh, what's it going to be like? Oh, I'm going to try this, right? That is their want. Now they want to try it, right? And they might do it, right? But as soon as they try it and have the warm drink over the cold drink and they try to go, oh, wow, that was great. It's about the next step. Will they continue it? Because after right now, they're going to be motivated by you to do it. That motivation by you is going to now make that a want, not a need, right? So they're going to be in the same situation again after they make the first decision that's motivated by your advice. And the question is, will they do it again and follow? That's the real question, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what you're saying is that I am creating. So what I tried to say is do something for no. So here's the basic problem is that we always do things for a reason. Yeah. And what we need to do is do things for no reason. Do the idiotic thing. Do the thing that there's no reason to do. And our desire is a damn good reason. And sometimes we struggle and we try to conquer desire and we try to study. I want to play games, but I need to study. So you wrestle with your desire and you conquer it and you study in that moment. And the next day you wake up and it's the same damn thing. Even though you conquer your desire time and time and time again, you still feel like you're at level 1. And that's because you're not conquering your desire. You're overcoming it in the moment through conflict, but you're not actually leveling up. Leveling up is to go to the grocery store, take the bag of chips that you would normally buy because it's your favorite flavor, and put it back on the shelf, and then pick a different flavor. And then to buy a different kind of bread and a different kind of juice for the rest of your life. And for the rest of your life, always pick the option that is not the one that you want. And then it'll be the rest of your life. And then
I think
you'll understand how to act in without being controlled by yourself. It's not
yeah.
being controlled by your desires. It's being having an intention and saying, I'm going to pick this thing, even though there is no reason to do it. And when you can do something for no reason, then like life becomes so easy. It's in your
Yeah.
control. Because
And
what holds us back is reasons.
I think what helped me the most to do what's needed versus what you want is something my dad drilled in me every day for like 10 years. And it would always go this way. And I give this in my advice streams because I get a lot of the same questions about people in university and college and stuff like that, right? They say, I hit that class and I just don't want to be there. I don't want to do this. I don't want to study. I hate it. And I try to normalize this idea that, listen, everyone around you hates it, that there will always be a class for someone that they hate, no matter what major they take, no matter what they think they love. And here's what he would tell me. Say, Tyler, listen, there's gonna have to be a time where you come to realize that it's about what you need to do, not what you want. And an example of this is right now you're in college. If you want to follow what you want to do and only that, then you can do that. You can have 4 years of wanting and fun and greatness and going with your emotions and irrational impulses. But guess what? Eventually reality is going to settle in. And this world, no matter how unfair it is, there's one thing we have to understand. It's ran by money. Money makes the world go round. No matter how unfair you think it is, no matter how much you think it needs to change, sure. But in order to put any change into it, into the actual system, not the idea of the system, is to get to the top and use that position to change things, right? Now, that part I put into it, right? What he put into it was this. You have 4 years of fun, the next 50 years of your life. And here's the part that is so crazy to me that none of us ever understand until it's too late. If we keep battling this, but I don't want this, I don't love this, I don't understand why I need to do this. Guess what? If you don't do it, the next 50 years of your life, you're working a 9 to 5 job for some asshole that's half as smart as you in a small cubicle, and you have to do it. You have no choice. This time, you're in a position where you have no doors open. You're going to be forced to do it. So if you can take that idea that in the next 50 years of your life, you're going to be forced to do something you do not want to do, all because of a sacrifice you couldn't make of giving 4 years of your life of doing what you need to do. The next 50 years is going to be exactly that, but you have no doors open this time, no ways out. Or 4 years of realizing that I need to do this, not want. I need to put my head down. I need to get good grades. I need to study. I need to get to a good job, be my own boss. Then the next 50 years of your life, you'll have the choice to do what you want, right? And when you want to do it. And that's kind of what was in my head. So I sat there and I sacrificed the time and I put my head down, and that's kind of where it led me to, right? And that's what people don't realize. I mean, they're sitting here arguing whether they need to do this homework, but it's like right now you have 700,000 doors open to what you can do in your life. And if you don't mature and realize that, if you don't realize this is the time to do what you need, the next 50 years of your life, you have to do that anyways, right? You have to do what you need in the next 50 years. And this time you have no choice. And I think that is what opened my eyes the most.
Mm.
Obviously, after 10 years of hammering my head, because I didn't listen, the first 9 years. But does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think
Yeah.
it's powerful stuff. And I also wonder a little bit because I remember sort of in a weird way, trains thinking the same thing. And that's actually in a weird way what made it so hard. Is I knew every day when I woke up and I played Diablo 2 and logged on,
Great
I
game.
knew that I just needed to work hard for 4 years and then I would be set. And I knew that it was like such a easy trade to make, right? 4
Yeah.
years of working hard to get into medical school, and then the current will carry you the rest of the way. I was going to
Yeah.
be a doctor. I was going to have money. Women would be falling in love with me because I'm a doctor, and that's what society had taught me that they do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, you're right.
And that's also why I hated myself and thought that I was such a piece of shit. Because it's a no-brainer to sacrifice 4 years for 50. And if I can't even do that, how stupid am I? And it's bizarre because I'm with you 100%. I would wake up every day and I knew that like I just got to do this one thing. I just got to do
Yeah.
this. And it's such a good trade to make. And I know I need to make it. Because my
Yeah.
parents told me the same thing too. And bizarrely, it's because I understood that it became like so much harder and I beat myself up so much. Because it's one thing to like make a bad choice when it's like a difficult choice. It's completely, you just think that you're so much more of a piece of shit when the choice is a no-brainer, you can't bring yourself to do it anyway. And that's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with you.
I agree.
I think
Yeah.
it's tough though.
I agree. It is tough. And the trick is once you start, it becomes easy. When it becomes easy, it follows you on and it starts affecting more than 4
Yeah.
years. And that's the trick, right?
Yeah.
I think people are focused on the 4-year thing. They're like, oh, that's not the point. The point is, right, when you understand it and you begin to, put it into your practice, it becomes, it
Yeah.
becomes a natural thing. And that's when you start succeeding,
I, and I think that kind
right?
of goes
Yeah.
to what you were saying about, taking one step forward and having your goal move one step higher. It's a constant process of
Yeah.
growth and change.
Yeah. And it's never easy. It's a day by day battle. There's no understanding it. Just to make it clear, everyone, it's day by day battle. You're going to wake up. Hey, you're not going to want to go to school. You're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Get up and do it.
Trade, we keep on saying that, but to be honest, like, can I just ask you straight up? Like, I
Yeah.
sometimes feel like my life is pretty easy. Do you feel like your life is like, I mean, I still struggle on a day-to-day basis, but I do feel like things are easier for me now than, because I do think I learned some shit at some point,
Yeah.
and it did actually make life like pretty easy and enjoyable.
Yeah. I think when you step back from it all and you remove each individual experience and you kind of just step back and you look at it objectively. Yeah. I think, you know, I think, we're sold this idea that, we have freedom, but I think ultimate freedom is when you're financially stable and financially secure. So I think in that sense, yeah, like objectively speaking, yeah, I think it's easier in that sense, right?
Okay.
But I don't think, and I know this is going to be, not many people will accept this because they use the thing, oh, well, it's easy to say when you have money, but money doesn't solve like those deep pains and darknesses you have within you. There's no amount of money. Money is a mask for those. You can get money, you can feel good, you can buy a Lamborghini, you can go party, you can be financially set and feel good. But there's a reason why every single person, when they get rich, they start preaching, they start going, So yeah, objectively speaking, yes. Is it easier? Would I rather be here than there? Yes, 100%. Right? I'm not going to high road you there. Yes. But the deeper issues that aren't solved by becoming successful or being rich, those are battles you're gonna have to battle every day, right? And I
Agreed.
think thinking that money solves them is the unrealistic standard that we're talking about, right?
So interestingly enough, when I say that I think my life is easier, I'm not talking about money or success. I mean, I really mean like I do feel like at some point like finding your anchor, for example, is more of what I'm talking. I think there is some way to level up and just be better at it and have life be a little bit easier to deal with. I still sometimes like beat myself up and feel ashamed of myself, but I do feel like it's like night and day compared to what I used to do to myself.
Yeah.
And I do think that you can learn. And I just sort of noticed that the way that we're talking about it, making it sound like this endless road. I mean, it is in a sense an endless road, but it's also like you do get better at it, and life does get easier,
Oh,
and you
yes,
do feel
yes.
better about yourself, and so I just kind of noticed this cast of the conversation. It's like the tone of the conversation became super, and it's like actually like
Gloomy?
you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. It's so I don't know what the hell this I don't know. I bought a mango, and I think this fruit fly came from that mango. I'm a little pissed off. But anyways, yeah, no, you're completely right. Like, I guess we didn't clarify, right? So that flame that you have, that anchor, that immortal thing to strive to, right? If you're basing everything you do off of that, right? In order to get to that, it's giving a little piece of yourself, to the world every day, right? It's doing those little small kind acts no one knows about, but it's bettering the world because it starts a ripple effect, this butterfly effect that, now this individual that receives that kind little gesture you did is going to give that another gesture to someone else. And it's just going to keep going around. And that's the way to get to the end goal of my anchor, at least, right?
yeah,
Does that make any sense?
yeah. It makes a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah.
sense, man.
something like
Listen,
that.
we've been
Yeah.
at it for a little while. I've been
Yeah, we
asking
can
you a
change
lot of
topics. Yeah.
questions. No, I actually kind of got to wrap up in a little
Oh,
bit.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Any questions that you want to ask me, or anything that we kind of didn't get to that you want to cover? I mean, I also feel like we're sort of at a good. I think we've like covered something, and it feels like it's kind of got the end of a chapter right now. Does
Agreed.
that?
Yeah.
And so I
It
just don't
does
know
feel it. Yeah.
if I have time
Yeah.
to launch into another one. I'd love to. I'd still love to ask you lots of questions, kind of actually a little bit about your upbringing, and if you feel
Yeah.
comfortable experiencing some of your struggles with drugs and stuff like that.
I
I
want to
also
talk about that definitely. I think we need to do another like the
Okay.
reason I wanted to do this, like I think people were expecting um I've talked about my stream a little bit, but I think people were expecting this like thing where I'm going to come on and and teach their own. I don't want to shame it anyway. I'm not going to say what I'm going to say next because I realize it might be sound like it's shaming it. But like for me, I like to come in, do a little you know warm up to each other a little bit, talk a little bit. I don't want to dive right into it because like if I drop a bunch of deep emotional shit onto you, right? As much as you try to back away objectively and address it and help out, I feel like there's an overload, right? There isn't this authentic connection. So I think this was the we opened the book, smelt the first new pages, maybe read the first line of the chapter one, and then our next convo is the deep shit that I think you've gotten with everybody in the first session. With me, I think it's more of a book. It's a journey itself, right? Well, because that's how it's been for me with other people I've talked to, right?
Well,
You
I
got to
don't know if
go
this
into
is
it.
going to sound pseudo-sexual, but I like the scent of your book, Trey.
Oh, I like this. Hey, I like the way your fingers caress my book and open it to the first chapter. And believe me, the paper in my book isn't going to give you a paper cut, so you're good. You're good to go. Trust me, I'm telling you. I hate
No,
that
I mean
paper cut
seriously,
stuff.
I love your analogy, man. Like I love the analogy of like, the like opening up a new book for the first time, because it does have a smell. Sort of
It
like
does. Beautiful.
yeah.
It's the smell of adventure,
I
of
also like the
greatness.
smell of old library books, but they're kind of musty,
No,
but
no. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. It
So
depends. If you're in
I,
a collegiate area, it's yeah. Go ahead.
I'm hearing that it doesn't sound like any kind of questions on your end, or it sounds like you kind of got what you were hoping for out of the conversation in terms of like I haven't left you hanging in some way.
No, for me, all I enjoy is, I mean, at first I had my doubts, and after having you on the podcast, I realized, and I talked about this once in this room. I think you were there. You know, it's some people have the IQ, some people have the EQ, and I think you have both. I think you have both the social intelligence, the and the logic. And for me, that's what I enjoy the most. Right? I enjoy that. So for me, it's more of just talking to someone because there aren't many people I can talk to. Right? So just talking to someone, dive into different things is for me is what I wanted and it's what I got. And I think that's why if we continue and go deeper into the book, like I think what people want is the meat of the book. For me, I have to build a trust for that. So this is the stage one of trust. The next session might be chapter 1 and 2. And the
Okay.
session after that will be chapter 5. That's the deep shit, right?
Okay.
We're talking like we're going into the addiction, we're going into the drugs, we're going into, I think earlier you were talking about how people do, some people do drugs to find an escape, right? For me, I didn't do drugs for an escape, so to speak. I did drugs because I craved a certain chaos. I needed a chaos in life. I needed a continuous story, an adventure that was written for me. And this is before it goes a little deeper than that, right? It was crazy. So I can give you that. And I've done, I'm not proud of it. This sounds like I'm bragging about it. I'm not, it was some hard, really terrible things, but we can go into that next time. And that'll
Okay.
definitely be some crazy shit.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, look, man. So I think from my perspective, I really appreciated this conversation, and I know a lot of times people are like expect chapter 5, or they think that what we want is chapter 5. Everyone is looking for deep, heavy shit with emotional catharsis and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
great, and I enjoy having. I basically try to have the conversation that needs to be had, and
I
today,
agree.
what I really appreciated about your conversation is that we have all these conversations with deep emotional shit, and then like a lot of the people that are watching are like, now what? Like it's great that we understand that, but like how do I actually move forward? Or what they want is they want that emotional catharsis from themselves. And what I actually really appreciated about today is I think that, Train, it sounds like you've had a lot of struggles and you've basically overcome them in some way. I mean, I know we still talk about how it's kind of a constant day-to-day thing, but you
Yeah,
seem to have like, grown into a different person from where you were many years ago. And I think what was really great is like having your perspective on how that growth happens and what are the principles involved. Sometimes people come from to watch stream from almost like a voyeuristic standpoint in terms of like, oh, like what's deep down inside Train, and like that's cool and all, and that's like entertaining and we get to see authenticity and stuff, but I hope that even if it wasn't quite as emotionally gratifying, I hope that today what we talked about was actually like practically helpful for a lot of people.
it is. Yeah, I think it is. And real quick to add to this, if you think about why people enjoy watching the chapter 5 of each streamer's, a book, it actually ties into perfectly what we talked about earlier, right? What I mean by that is
We're
I think
connected.
a lot of people look at streamers and they judge them for what they see. Millions of fans, a lot of money, whatever they want, friends with other popular people. And then when they get to see them at their vulnerable point, a place where they would have never imagined that this streamer has ever been, a place where they're broken, lost, no sense of self, no sense of any sort of direction, nothing, just a broken, lost individual, just like every individual in chat watching. When they see that, it helps them relate to the streamer more. And the very connection that I think we crave as human beings, the humanity, the empathy that is stripped from us because of technology, because of fronts that are placed by social medias, because of these very things that we refuse to admit because we want everyone to think we're happy and great, are the very reasons that I think people love to watch this show. And I think it's one of the greatest things the show brings, to make us all realize that no matter how much money we make, no matter how many girlfriends we have, at the end of the day, we are all in the same boat, broken, lost, and just trying to find who the fuck we are, right? And that's, I think, the most beautiful part about the show. It ties into exactly what we started with. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I'm with you. I mean, that's like literally
Yeah,
exactly what we're here for. I think you captured it
yeah.
beautifully, Train. I think we're here
Thank you.
because it was my experience working with individual gamers and people from this community that like they didn't realize that their struggles are actually shared, and that if we work on them together, we can make progress. And it's like it's 1,000 people. Like imagine playing WoW without any wiki. It's like in a
Yeah,
way that's like really fantastic, but you're gonna be level 20 for a long ass time, you know.
yeah.
And so I think part of what the AoE healing about is exactly what you said, and that's just sort of like people sharing like, hey, it turns out that the struggles that I have, I can learn from someone else because they're
You're right.
struggling the same way too.
And I see a couple of people are like questioning that reference. I'll explain it real quick. There's a reason why that one hyperlink is clicked the most by all of us for that one quest in that one area, right? We're all struggling on that problem. Now, the difference is if we didn't have that wiki, we didn't have the internet, we'd all individually think that we're the only ones struggling on that. And therefore, we'd assume that we are just, lacking in that department. But no, all of us are on the same boat in that same exact place, in that same exact hill, right? It's crazy. All this comes full circle to what we started with. It's actually crazy how
Yeah.
everything is coming to full circle, and we can start chapter 2 next time. We'll go into deeper, crazy shit. People can kind of get a context of, instead of diving into it
So,
right away.
so Train, sometimes I teach people how to meditate. Are you interested in learning that today?
Yeah, some breathing techniques would be good. I think that I've
Okay.
tried making my own breathing techniques based on what I've seen in movies, but I end up just getting up and not doing them. So yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. So I'm going to teach you actually something.
Or
So I try to,
meditation. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So same thing.
yeah.
So, um, I'm going to teach you something that I tend to teach people. We haven't taught it in a little while now. Like, so I try to teach it every couple weeks, for people
Hmm.
who are like new to the show. Show, I guess I'm calling it now. Didn't realize we were a show. Um, so I'm going to teach you something called Nadi Shuddhi or Nadi Shodhana, which means alternate nostril breathing. And I want you to try to like, I'm going to teach you a particular way where you're going to breathe in through one nostril and then out through the other. And
This
what
is
it,
gonna be this is gonna be a meme. You want to know why? As soon as I plug one of my nostrils, there's gonna be cocaine memes all over my Reddit. But just go ahead. It's an inside thing. Yeah, I'm sorry I haven't brought that up.
okay, I mean,
I'll tell you what, actually, real quick, you teach me this, and then I'll teach you one thing, and then we'll wrap this session up. Is that cool?
That sounds great. Do you want to teach me
Perfect.
first, or you want me to teach you first?
Well, I'm going to teach you what you were confused about in the beginning. I saw some vocabulary that was new. I'm going to teach you some meanings, help
Okay.
you out with some things, and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I was just
All
really
right, do it.
confused because you were like talking about cocaine memes, and they're like, "You're going to teach you something, then I'm going to teach you something," and my mind just naturally connect. Anyway, so
I got you.
so I'm gonna. So the interesting thing about Nadi Shuddhi is that earlier you were talking about like having energy in your body and your mind blocked. And so Nadi Shuddhi is really interesting because we have our central nervous system has two modes. It has the sympathetic nervous system, which is kind of fight or flight. It's sort of adrenaline. It's sort of like getting ready to go. And then it has your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. So kind of calm, kind of chilling. And the interesting thing about this technique is that it actually, like, it's been physiologically shown to balance these two parts of yourself. So to balance your yin and balance your yang. So if you're too hyped up and you need to calm down, it'll calm you down. And if you're feeling kind of sluggish and slow, it'll actually energize you.
Okay,
It's the
that's
technique.
perfect, actually.
Yeah. So it's the technique that I teach people. This is kind of, when I teach it, what I say to people is the feedback that I got. I used to teach a lot of primarily doctors. And so emergency room physicians came to me and they said, "Hey, we love this technique. We think this is our favorite one. Do we think you should teach it to everybody?" And I said, "Why is that?" And they said, "Well, sometimes, I'll have like someone like a gunshot victim in one bay, and then I'll have like a sexual assault victim who's a teenager in the second bay. And I have to walk out of one room in one frame of mind, which is like chest compressions, paddles, bleeding, IVs, all that kind of like medical show drama. And then
Yep.
move into a room and talk to a 15-year-old kid about like how they were just assaulted. And so I need to like mentally reset. This is the technique that helps me mentally reset. Okay. For you, I understand sometimes you mentioned ADHD in the past, right? So I think, no?
Probably not HD.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
more like bipolar, just manic. Yeah, just
Okay.
getting crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, whatever. Yeah.
So can you do this? So right hand, thumb out. Yeah. Great.
This.
Perfect. So what I want you to do is take your right thumb and block your right nostril and breathe in through your left.
Oh, okay. That's my other hand. Okay. Wait.
So
On.
breathe. Yep. Breathe in.
Okay. Yeah.
And then with a full breath, switch and block the other nostril with the other two fingers. Same hand, same hand. Yep, there you go. And breathe out. Good. Now breathe in through the same nostril without switching. And now switch. And breathe out. Good. In through the same. No, don't breathe out. Just breathe in.
Yeah.
And then switch. And out. Good. In. Switch. Out. Good. In. So basically you want to switch with a full breath of air. Switch. Out. Very good. In. Beautiful. Y'all should do this if y'all are watching too. I strongly encourage it. So go ahead and close your eyes and we'll practice for about 60 to 90 seconds. ahead and finish the round that you're on.
Damn. I feel good. I like that.
What is good?
My mom's it means I feel calm, clear-minded. I just feel good.
Yeah.
You know, I feel a little bit of both actually. I feel like I just feel good. I feel calm. I feel good.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's like there's a
Yeah.
certain kind of good. There are different kinds of good. But the cool
No,
thing, Train,
yeah.
is that's 90 seconds. That's it, man. Like
Yeah.
it's such a short amount of time.
My mom's been trying to
Practice.
get me to do breathing exercises since I was like 16 and and yoga.
Yeah.
Yoga's
Right.
actually good.
Yeah.
I did yoga once. I actually got bigger. It expanded my muscles somehow.
Hmm. Cool.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you some crazy shit. Yeah, yeah. Some Super Saiyan 2 Goku type stuff. Crazy.
Cool.
No, I actually believe in it. Like no joke. Like I think breathing techniques are so like I think that in itself is a way to get to you know, it helps in the journey of like self-discovery and stuff like that. I think it's
Sure.
really good.
The yogis from ancient India would agree with you.
Yeah. And to like follow your breath and imagine it through the body, imagine it going through the,
Mhm.
lungs and the whatever. Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Train, I think this is maybe a little bit unfair on my end, but I was struck by I had assumed, for whatever reason, this is probably unfair of me, that you were not a deeply spiritual person, but I get the sense that you're a deeply spiritual person.
Oh, I am. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
definitely
cool
am.
to see. So anyway, man,
Yeah.
thank you very
No,
much.
and we'll
Yeah.
talk about that next time because I think what you're struck by initially, I want to get into that. I think we talked about it a little bit in DMs, like the halo versus all those effects. When you see somebody like I
Mhm.
think we'll talk about that next time as well. But real quick before we go, I'm gonna give you like 2 or 3 meanings right here. So no shot, right? When you hear no shot, Bucko, that means no chance, like no way, right? Like so, like let's say your wife comes in or let's say you tell your wife, I'm gonna beat you in this video game. She's gonna say no shot. I'm giving her the W because I got you. I'm gonna back you up here. I'm not gonna say you're gonna win. If I say you're gonna win, you're gonna be
Appreciate
on
it,
the couch
man.
next 2 weeks. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, she's gonna say no shot, Bucko. Nah, I'm gonna win, right? Next one is on a stack, right? On a stack is like, you know, imagine you and your wife are arguing. Now your wife says, "Listen, I'm 100%, on a stack. I'm telling you, on a stack, I'm right." Then you go, okay, right? On a stack means it's 100. 100% she's right. And we know that's always the case, right? That's what I've learned with having a girlfriend. She's always right. Even when she's not, she's right, right? Just how it is, right? It's one of the things we learn, you know. Um, a buck 50, same thing. It just means 100%. They're right. Um, let's see. What else? Last one. Let's give you, you're bugging. You bugging, right? That means you're just, yeah, you're just, you're bugging. You're, you know, you're crazy, nah, it means no, it's not it, right? So let's say, you tell me, Train, I think you're the best looking man in the world, right? Someone in chat that thinks I'm ugly might go, nah, Dr. K, yo, doc, you're bugging, right? No shot, he's the best looking. You're bugging, doc, right? So I taught you that. So whenever if
Appreciate
you
it,
ever do
man.
a show with Nick Merckx, right, this is going to be necessary because you want to understand the thing he's saying unless you understand this lingo.
I don't know who that is, but great. Now I'm equipped to talk
Yeah,
to Nick Merckx,
yeah,
which is good.
you're equipped to talk to him. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. I really do appreciate catching up on the lingo because, like, I literally don't understand. So I was confused a couple weeks ago, and so someone said Keemstar, and I thought Keemstar was like a term, like, oh, like that person's like a Keemstar, like that. I didn't know what it meant, because it sounds like a
Should be.
term, and then I learned
Yeah,
that that was a person,
yeah.
and and so it's like I don't know on a short stack if that's like a streamer or like a like I just don't know if so I really do appreciate it because I don't know. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I know I'm a boomer, but like, holy hell, like the lingo evolves
Yeah.
so fast.
Yeah. If you ever run into Keem, you just gotta, make sure to stay on topics like, aliens, and that's it. Nothing else. Right. You just keep the topic with aliens or like, just some non-harmful crazy shit. And just aliens, and that's it, right? Everything else, yeah. You want to talk to me, talk to me, and
I
we're good.
feel
Does that
like
make
you're
sense?
trying to educate me, but the entire time we've been talking, Train, I have always understood you, despite you being confused about, like, do you feel me? Do you understand? Am I making sense? This is the one time I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. So two or three questions that I have. First of all, is if you ever run into Keem, you make it sound like he's a random encounter. Like I'm gonna be like out like, farming my apples and like a wild Keemstar appears. So I don't know if that ever
Well,
happens. And the second thing is like, what do you mean by talk about aliens instead of other shit?
I'm just saying, keep it to like a casual talk of, like stuff you do with your friends when you're like high or something, right? Like, you know, I mean,
I
that's what I do.
okay.
I keep it to like a casual alien, talk, gold in the, Arizona Grand Canyon. I keep it to like that ends, right? Because otherwise, we get into arguments, right? Because there's different political opinions of different things. It gets a little crazy. So just
Okay,
just
so
trust
I
me. Yeah, yeah.
I don't imagine that. I mean, I guess in theory I could talk to him, but I don't randomly talk to people. But I appreciate the advice anyway. It sounds like
Yeah,
steer
just in
clear of
case.
any kind of sensitive topic, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I would do like, yeah, just do like treasure in Grand Canyon. That's what I did, right? I try to keep it to like a nice. Yeah, never mind. Let's get off the
Okay.
top. The point is, it was great being here. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
man,
clear
it was
now.
great talking to you. You've succeeded in confusing me, which you have been
Perfect.
foiled for the last like 2 hours. But now I don't even know.
Well, welcome to
Talk
my
to him
streams.
about aliens. Like it's just a weird fucking deal. It's like, hey, like this is my little cousin Timmy. If you want to like get in good with him, talk to him about aliens. He likes
Yeah,
tinfoil hats and propellers.
yeah,
And so
unironic.
it's like, okay, like I don't know, is he a UFO buff? Like I don't, I mean, I like talking about aliens. Like I think it's fascinating.
So do I. I love
Yeah.
aliens too. I'm just saying, like, it's a topic that can never go into a harmful direction. That's what I mean, right? Some,
Do topics go into harmful directions with
yeah, if we start talking
team?
about, like, just some crazy shit comes out. Some people think things, some people don't. You just want to talk about things that don't. And
Train
Doc,
now.
listen, it's been a
Yeah,
great show.
let's just
Okay,
stop because I
it's been
don't
a
know
great
if
show, Doc. Yeah, yeah,
sometimes you
yeah,
talk about things and some things come out. I don't even know what the fuck that means, man. Anyway, let's
yeah.
just stop it here. We were doing so
Neither do I.
well.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
We'll
Take care,
call it
man.
there.
Awesome.
We'll do another show soon, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks a
we'll
lot,
talk
buddy.
about the deeper stuff. Thank you.
Take care.
Love you. Bye.
We did so well for so long. We did so well.